Hello, everyone. My name is Christina Gothier. I'm the Public Relations Coordinator for PERA's Albuquerque office. Thank you all so much for joining us today for PERA's June topical seminar, How to Purchase Service Credit. We are going to go through the three types of most popular types of service credit purchases that are available to members, first and foremost. This presentation is being recorded and it'll be uploaded to our video library just as soon as we can get it downloaded from the cloud and re-uploaded to our video library on our YouTube PERA channel. So we are going to go ahead and kick off the seminar, How to Purchase Service Credit. First and foremost, we are going to discuss the three most common types of service credit purchases that PERA members ask about. We are going to, in conjunction with those types, discuss how those service credit cost calculations are factored, and then, most importantly, other items to consider. First item of business, types of service credit, and how those types of service costs are calculated. All right, so the three most common types of service credit purchases are known as withdrawn, forfeited, I call it refunded service credit, military service credit, is also an option for those individuals who have served active duty military. Airtime service credit is super popular. We get lots of questions about that as well. So we are going to kick off our discussion with withdrawn, forfeited, I call it refunded service credit. This type of service credit can be purchased before a member is vested. The only requirement is that you've returned to a PERA-affiliated employer and you have a minimum of 1 month of service credit posted to your account, or you're actively employed by an employer covered under the Educational Retirement Board, who is our state sister retirement plan. Withdrawn service credit purchases can be made in one or more yearly increments, or if you have enough funds available, you can purchase all of your withdrawn service credit in one lump sum. Purchases of less than 1 year of service credit are only allowed if you've withdrawn less than a year of service credit, or you need less than a year to qualify for retirement. In the instance you're using less than a year of withdrawn service credit to qualify for retirement, PERA will require you to submit your application for pension, and that has to be done no earlier than 6 months in advance of your planned retirement date. All right, next item of business. So officially, the cost calculation takes into consideration several factors. First, PERA is looking at the principal tied to the pre-tax, pre-penalty, employee contribution, and interest total in your bucket at the time of the refund. So PERA is actually gathering that information from your previous employment records. Next item of business. Oh, went too fast. All right, here we go. Interest. Interest is set at a rate by PERA's board. The interest rates that you see on the screen now have changed over the years and oftentimes have depended on PERA's investment returns. And so had those dollars not been refunded from PERA, those funds would have actually grown for PERA at those return rates that you see on the screen. Now, this is a compounding interest rate, and so as a general rule, every 7 years from the date the member refunds their service credit to the date that they pay it back, based on these compounding interest rates you see, basically the amount the member owes is double. And so when I looked at this sample to pull it into the presentation, I'm about to age myself, so bear with me. I looked at December 1st of 1997 and thought to myself, that wasn't that long ago, except that it really truly is. I remember what grade I was in 1997, and so we're talking decades of time and compounding interest that have passed from the time that PERA paid out those funds in 2006 to today. I had a baby in 2006. She's going to be 17 this year. And so 17 years of compounding interest really catches up with you. You can see here that the member owes almost 3 times the original contribution balance in just interest. When PERA is sending you your purchase agreement, we are totaling the principal and the interest and the total amount has to be paid in full for PERA to reinstate that service credit. As I noted earlier, a member can purchase withdrawn service credit 1 year at a time as they can afford it, or if you can afford more than 1 year at a time, definitely stopping the interest clock from ticking is definitely in your favor. And so if this amount looks extremely overwhelming, it's not the only option. This sample actually shows 7 years and 9 months of refunded service credit, but this member can technically purchase 1 year now, save some more money, and then continue buying a year at a time to help stop the interest from accruing and get that service credit reinstated into their account. Now, the next slide has an example on it that doesn't necessarily mirror the sample we just looked at. And the reason is they had too many years of withdrawn service credit for me to explain the notes on this slide. And so I pulled this sample to show you all how PERA is actually calculating the member contributions and interest accrued in a member's account. And so when we look at the sample on the screen, this member was employed from roughly November of 2016, officially through August 4th of 2018. And so when the member took a refund, it turned out to be 1 year and 8 months worth of service credit. When the member contacted PERA and was interested in only purchasing a year, PERA technically starts at the end of the period of refund, and we work backwards to find 12 months of employee contributions and interest. So if this member were interested in purchasing the 1 year to stop the interest from ticking, PERA would look at all the contributions from August of 2017 through August of 2018. For those of you who are double checking my calendar and math skills, I am super aware that that is 13 months. However, because the member left employment prior to the 15th day of the month in August of 2018, that month does not count for service credit purposes. However, PERA paid out those contributions to the member, and they have to be paid back in order for us to reinstate that service credit. If the member repays PERA for the withdrawn service credit between August of 17 and 18, they can approach PERA after they have additional funds saved and purchase the service credit between technically December of 16 through July of 2017. And so we would add that back to their bucket. So it always works from the end of the refund period, and then we sort of snake backwards. If you have time with the Educational Retirement Board, just on a side note, they do it the opposite way. And so members often ask, is there a pro or a con to the other? And so in my professional opinion, when a member is paying back their withdrawn service credit by paying back the last period of refund first, obviously you're paying higher contributions, but there's less interest accrued from that last date of refund to the date that you're paying it back. And so I think our model is better for members from that perspective. All right. For those of you joining us today who have served active duty military, on behalf of Natalie Padilla, who is our public relations coordinator answering your questions in the Q&A, and myself and PERA's staff and our board, thank you for your service to our country. We truly appreciate you. You have the ability to purchase your pre-employment military service credit once you have completed 5 years of PERA service credit. That is the marker that PERA considers you to be a vested member, and so you have to be vested to purchase your military service credit. Once you've satisfied that requirement, the only other requirement is that it has to be active duty. National Guard time, unless you are activated to active duty as a Guards member, does not satisfy the statutory requirement for purchasing military service credit. Now, military service credit can be purchased in 1 or more monthly increments up to 60 months maximum. This is subject to our current plan maximums, which just went into effect June 16th. We're now at 100%. And so if a member served less than 60 months of active duty military, the member cannot purchase more than is certifiable on their DD-214 form or their set of orders. I think I may have skipped the fact that your orders or DD-214 form must reflect an honorable discharge in order to be eligible to purchase that time. On a side note, we're only talking about purchasing service credit today, but it would not be a great idea to skip this last bullet, which is if you get called to active duty while you were employed with a PERA affiliate and your intent is to return within 90 days of discharge from that active duty service, you may be eligible for free military service credit. So if that happens to you or someone that you work with, please have them contact PERA for additional information so that we can get their service credit whole while they were serving our country. All right, so how is military service credit cost calculated? All right, so first and foremost, PERA needs a copy of your DD-214 form. We're actually using your active duty start and end dates to determine how many months of active duty military you are eligible to purchase. We also want to make sure that those dates do not overlap dates of employment. Your discharge status is generally reflected on your DD-214 form. I know it's not visible on all of the sets of orders that we receive, but generally PERA can work with Veteran Services to help figure that out. The next item up for discussion is the cost calculation is actually based on the employee and employer contribution rates for the plan you're a member of at the time of purchase. And so right now today, PERA's 31 plans, those contribution rates have all been set by statute. If you are joining us from a city, a county, a state entity today, contribution rates are scheduled to go up 0.5% for both employees and employers the first full pay period in July of 2023, and that came courtesy of Senate Bill 72 in 2020. And so the cost calculation for military service credit is about to increase. Last item of business has to do with final average salary. If you are a Tier 1 member, final average salary is defined as the average of your highest 36 consecutive months of salary. If you are Tier 2, it is the average of your highest 60 consecutive months of salary. And so PERA actually looks, from the beginning of your career to the end of your career, and we isolate either the 36 months in a row that generate the highest average or the 60 consecutive months in a row that generate the highest average, depending on your tier of membership. So not only are the contribution rates going up next month for everyone, but most of us will receive a raise in July, so the cost just continues to grow. And as your new higher salaries replace your lower salaries, the cost will continue to increase. So just giving you a heads up from that perspective. The last type of service credit we're going to discuss today is known as airtime service credit. If I were standing in front of you in a crowded room, I would tell you service credit comes from thin air. We're literally plucking it from the thin air and adding it to your retirement account. Airtime service credit purchases can only be completed by vested members. All 5 years of PERA service credit have to be in your bucket before we allow you to complete that purchase request. Purchases of airtime can be made in 1 or more monthly increments up to 12 months maximum, anytime pre-employment. This is also subject to current plan maximums, as is military and withdrawn service credit. There is an element of all of these types of service credit that we're going to discuss that is non-refundable for the purposes of, we've seen it all essentially at PERA. I've seen members pay back their withdrawn time and then they leave in the future and they refund again. I've seen members leave employment after buying a year of airtime. Airtime is entirely non-refundable. And so making the decision to buy airtime should also be followed by your commitment to get to the finish line and draw your lifetime pension. Because if you decide to up and leave and you request a refund of your contributions, we get to retain all of the purchase price that you paid for your airtime service credit, and it'll help fund someone else's retirement. All right, so how is airtime calculated? There are technically 4 factors that go into consideration for this cost calculation. First, PERA is looking at your age at the time of purchase. We're calculating that number down to the month. Second, PERA is looking at how much service credit you have at the time of purchase. You will also see from the little graphic here on the left side of your slide, if you have service credit with the Educational Retirement Board, our sister retirement plan, it generally means you have reciprocity. That is also, not always, but it could be a factor in the airtime service credit calculation. Where I know it is absolutely a factor is If you can retire in the next 3-ish years using your educational retirement board time and you haven't purchased airtime, staff is supposed to include that in the cost calculation. Next item of business, PERA is actually looking at the plan you are participating in at the time of purchase. All of our plans have different individual contribution rates and pension factors, and so we want to make sure that you are having the cost calculated based on the plan you are currently a member of. Last but not least, final average salary is, if you haven't heard that terminology yet today, the definition is still the same: highest 36 consecutive months of salary for Tier 1 members, highest 60 consecutive months for Tier 2. These 4 factors determine the cost per month of airtime service credit. And so when you look at the graphic here on the left-hand side, you will see that for this member to purchase 1 month of airtime service credit, it is roughly $2,500 a month. If they wanted to buy a full year of airtime service credit, they would need to have over $30,000 available to pay it all immediately. But airtime military service credit can be purchased 1 month at a time as you can afford it, up to the respective plan maximums or depending on how much military time you've served. Your age, your service credit, your salary change on a monthly basis. All of us are getting 1 month closer to the next birthday. We're accruing more service credit. Our final average salary is hopefully growing, which will benefit our retirement, but also impacts the cost of airtime service credit. When we stand in crowded presentations and members say, well, Christina, can you tell me how much my airtime is going to be? I always laugh because I can't tell just by looking at your beautiful smiley faces. What I can tell you is the closer you get to retirement, the more expensive it is. And so if I were to look at my cost of airtime and my current salary, annual salary, because I can retire this December, it's about half of my annual salary. And so had I purchased it right when I first vested at 5 years of service credit, it would have been a very small percentage of that number. And so just something to take into consideration if you are considering purchasing service credit. All right, so I know there are lots of Q&As. I promise we're going to get to those. There are a few other items to consider. I want to make sure that this is super clear. We are teaching you how the costs are calculated and what the different service credit types are. But if you come to a presentation and I am presenting the section about buying time, I'm legitimately going to look you in the eye and say, I would absolutely never consider buying time. First and foremost, you're buying yourself out of one of the strongest pension systems in the United States, top 3 or top 5, depending on which study you look at. As an active employee, you are getting insurance on the cheap. When you retire, your options for post-retirement insurance are not going to be as inexpensive as it is now. There are some reasons I would consider buying time, whichever type of service credit you're considering. First and foremost, if my job was killing me and I needed to get out. Lucky for all of you, I still love this job. I learn something new every day, so that isn't one of the things I'm considering, but certainly we meet members every day who have had enough and are ready to take their toys and go home. And so buying time can reduce the required number of working years that you need to get to retirement eligibility. Now, twice today, I've seen emails roll into PERA, members indicating that they may have missed earning service credit for a handful of months while they took family medical leave as leave without pay. And so members have asked, can I buy airtime to fill in that gap? And so as I mentioned, airtime literally comes from thin air. It is not replacing a specific period of time, but it could add 3 months to your overall service credit if that's what you missed in the beginning. But what I want you to consider is this: how did missing that service credit impact your retirement eligibility? If somebody who has only known me as an employee of PERA, I began my PERA journey not a PERA member journey, but my PERA employment journey in February of 2005. If you were to look at only this snippet of my employment history, some might suggest that I buy January and February of my first year of employment to make that first year complete and whole so that I could get to retirement eligibility in December of that year. But what it doesn't take into consideration is the big picture, which is I worked for a municipality before I came to work for the state of New Mexico. If we look at the big picture, I actually get to solid years of service credit every June 30th. And so I also have reciprocity with the Educational Retirement Board, which is what makes me eligible for retirement this December. If I were to only buy 2 months, my retirement date could be pulled back to October 31st, but then I'm going to miss out on all the state holidays that I would be paid. If I'm in the process of setting my final average salary, I'm going to miss out on those 2 months of higher salary that could replace previous 2 months of lower salary. And so you want to take into consideration where your service credit stands at the time of purchase, because buying a full year that pulls you back to February of some year might not be ideal in terms of the way that PERA pays cost of living adjustments. Now, that being said, if you've had it up to here, getting out sooner than later and preserving your mental health and your physical health, hands down, super important. If I had a loved one who was ill, I would plunk down the money immediately and go spend time with them, because we're all adults here and I absolutely understand we don't get that time back. If I have another job lined up and they're not going to wait for me to get to December to retirement eligibility, and that new job has insurance benefits, sign me up, here's my money. Honestly, there aren't a lot of other reasons I would consider buying time. One of the most important pieces of information you need to consider when buying time is this third bullet, kind of off to the left-hand side. Buying time equals buying time. It does not, under any circumstances, increase your final average salary. Oftentimes we get members saying, well, if I buy out my last year, won't that mean I get a year of salary? There's only one way to get a year of salary, which is to work it and be paid every 2 weeks and be reported by your employer as having earned those wages and pay the associated contributions. So a lot of members, whoever's spreading that in the rumor mill, please stop. It is not accurate nor true. Buying service credit is strictly service credit. The only way to earn a higher salary is to go to work and have it reported to PERA and pay the associated contributions. As I mentioned earlier, a portion or all of the purchase cost associated with buying time is non-refundable. For withdrawn, refunded, forfeited service credit, the interest that you pay back to PERA is non-refundable if you leave employment and refund in the future. For military service credits, the employer contribution portion of that calculation is entirely non-refundable if you leave employment in the future and take a refund. Airtime is entirely non-refundable. All right, my last bullet, buying time may alter your relationship with the New Mexico Retiree Healthcare Authority. It is super important to understand that PERA and retiree healthcare are completely separate state entities, but what you do with us could impact your relationship with them. There's actually an insert in the purchase agreement paperwork that explains that buying certain types of service credit may result in a change at retiree healthcare. So without stepping on their toes, I'm going to do my best to give you a little snippet of what our letter says, and then point you in the right direction to ask more questions. The bolded text at the bottom of this slide tells you that service credit purchases must be paid in full prior to your effective retirement date. You can't come back after you've started drawing your pension and say, I have the money now, Christina, can I buy my time? Because the answer is unfortunately not. Of course, you could suspend your pension, become a contributing member again, and then buy your time. But generally, once we've added you to payroll, most will not suspend their pension just to buy time, because they have to go through steps to become a contributing member again. All right, so what I mentioned earlier was look at your personal details when considering buying time. Every year, PERA pays interest on member accounts. Generally, that happens when all of the contributions have been paid through June 30th, which sparks an internal process of PERA sending you an annual member statement. That statement can be somewhat confusing because we list your years in fiscal years from July 1st through June 30th each year. But if you have any questions about your account, your service credit, by all means, please do not hesitate to reach out to PERA. We're here to help you. Next item of business, PERA has actually since 2006-ish, if memory serves, given you access online to your retirement information. Staff actually had a contest and named our software RIO. It's an acronym that stands for Retirement Information Online. And when you visit PERA's website at nmpera.org and click the RIO login button, you can actually create a user ID and password. I need to add some notes to that for you, and go to our self-service portal. From the self-service portal, you have the ability, and this is actually a snippet of the self-service portal. You can either log in if you've already created an account, or if you need to open an account, I will come back to this slide, but once you're logged in, you can actually do a multitude of things, including estimate the cost of airtime and military service credit. If you are not interested in purchasing service credit and you're just here for information, you can generate an estimate of benefits when you are ready to turn in forms, documentation, submit your application for pension. The last bullet on this list allows you to upload forms. It is absolutely my favorite feature ever because you actually get notifications, 2 of them, telling you your paperwork is received and is now in process. This portal also gives you the ability to update your mailing address, contact information, and you can view your beneficiary designation. For the time being, beneficiary designations can only be changed on paper. So there's that. Now, back to this lovely portal. Today alone, I have seen at least 6 emails of members saying they've either tried creating an online account or they had an account in the past and they're not sure how to get it in. So the little snip on the left-hand side, if you've forgotten your user ID or your password, there are links at the bottom of that login page that can point you in the right direction. Of course, if you're using a different email address or no longer have access to the email from the prior sign-up, you'll have to reach out to PERA, either at the self-service help desk or the information that we'll share at the end of today. If you need to create a new PERA self-service account, I learned last week when I was putting the finishing touches on our updated handbook that'll hopefully go live next week, that we had to make a change to opening an account. If you are trying to open an account and you get an error message, I believe it is an X, 3 zeros, and a 7. It means that PERA does not have your email address registered in your actual account on our end, which will prohibit you from creating a self-service account. So if that is the case, you get that X0007 error message, please email us and we can add that information with your permission to your account, and then you can go through the rest of the process. The reason for this, it's that 2-factor authentication to keep everyone safe and secure. And so this part of the process will send a PIN to the email address in your account. We just don't give you the opportunity to add that email address here. So I apologize that there are extra steps now, but please reach out to us if we can be of assistance. We've already covered this. Last but not least, if you've run an estimate and purchasing service seems right up your alley, there really is only one way to request formally that cost. We will send you a non-binding purchase agreement if you turn in, complete and submit a PERA request form. This request form allows you to request the cost of withdrawn, forfeited, refunded service credit, military airtime. There is another type of service credit listed on this form that generally doesn't apply to a lot of people. So if you're not sure what that is and you have questions, please let us know. But essentially, you will complete this form. If you are requesting the cost of military service credits, we also need you to include your DD-214 form reflecting discharge status or your military orders. This form does not require a physical signature. You can literally type in your name and date because this form will not make any changes to your account. Once you've received the purchase agreement in your hot little hands, if you have questions, we give you all our contact information in the letter. And so you can turn in PERA's request form by fax, email, mail, uploading it to your self-service portal. You can hand deliver it to any of PERA's offices, and you'll be good to go. So I believe Mr. Paul Liam has joined the room this fine afternoon. He is our PERA Smart Save Deferred Compensation representative for Central New Mexico, and we have been working together a very long time, and so he knows everything. I'm super excited for him to be here. He is going to talk to you about the benefits of utilizing your deferred comp account to buy your time. For the record, you can write PERA a personal check. You can get us a money order, a bank check, but the smartest way to buy your time is using qualified retirement dollars because generally they are pre-tax. So, Mr. Liam, the floor is yours.
Thank you for the invitation. And I guess you are running early because if you're going through the Rio thing, you must have finished a little quicker. But I had one question before you go. Is this all state employees or is this everybody?
That is a really fantastic question. We know that our Bureau Chief, Christina Perea, sent it out to state employees through Do It. I'm not sure if it also went out to cities, counties.
Fair enough.
Honestly can't.
Fair enough. I'll be very general there too, but I want to give a brief overview. So thank you for the invitation. So I hope you guys are all aware of PERA Smart Save. You know, you have a phenomenal pension. This is a supplement to that. So your pension's your defined benefit. You work X number of years, you get X number of dollars for the rest of your life. This is your deferred. This is your defined contribution plan. It's a 457B. Most people are not familiar with that, but it's very similar to a 401k, basically without the 59.5 rule. So it allows you to save money. You decide how much. The minimum is $10 per pay period. The regular max is $22,500. At age 50, that jumps up to $30,000. There's actually also a catch-up provision that allows you to put in up to $45,000 for 3 consecutive years once you're within 3 years of your eligible retirement. So there's a lot of room to shelter money. Again, you have one of the best pensions in the nation. New Mexico, we're on the bottom of every list, not the case with your pension. But the fact that they offer a secondary plan tells me a lot as well, you know. And no one's ever come back and said, you know what, you helped me save too much for retirement. So the reason I asked that question, who is in the audience, is most people are part of the pre-tax plan, and that's the way deferred comp's always been. You take money out of your check pre-tax, so it's not a dollar for dollar reduction in your take-home pay. So basically, if you put in $100 per pay period, it's really only going to impact your take-home pay by $75 because you're not paying that $25 to Uncle Sam up front. So that money will grow tax deferred. At the end, when you withdraw it, it would be taxed as you withdraw it. So state, Bernalillo County, the Albuquerque Water Authority, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, all the plans that have it. There's a handful that offer a Roth provision. By the end of the year, that will change and almost everybody will have the Roth version of this. So that's an after-tax version of the plan. So that same $100 example is going to affect your take-home pay by $100 because they're going to pay the taxes up front. So that money is still going to grow tax-free, but at the end you will withdraw it tax-free. So you're getting a tax benefit, but you decide when you want to get it. And the reason I'm going to that difference right now is you can use your deferred comp to buy service credit. And again, it's a lot of money. I'm not a huge fan. You know, there's certain instances where it makes a lot of sense to me, but in most cases, if there's not a reason to buy it, it just costs too much. You know, it's a lot of money. But at the end of the day, that's not my decision to make. But if you have made that decision that you want to purchase the service credit, I would at least look at using my deferred comp to do it. And I would look at using the pre-tax version of the plan. You know, the big advantage there is if you use the after-tax version, you already paid the taxes. So we have that bucket of money. We can pay PERA. That's not an issue, but there's no tax advantage. If you use the pre-tax version of the plan, you didn't pay tax on that money. It's not us giving you a distribution, which would be a taxable event. it's effectively a direct rollover to PERA, so it's tax-free. So if you are going to buy service credit, whether it's forfeited time, airtime, or military time, whatever, I would at least consider using the deferred comp pre-tax because it's going to save you quite a bit. You know, Uncle Sam's not much of a giver, so you might as well take advantage of that tax-free transaction. So as far as buying service credit, it's fairly easy process. You know, it does take a little while to get that first quote from PERA. So once you have that, if we have enough in your account, then it's pretty easy. You know, it's a one-page form. Basically, who are you? How much time are you going to buy? What's the date in your quote? You have to have a valid quote or they will not process that. But if you have the valid quote, we have enough in the account, you can buy it. If you don't have enough to buy the entire amount, you don't have to buy it all at once. You know, we could buy it in increments. And sometimes if you don't have enough in your deferred comp, sometimes that does help. You know, it cut into that principal because when you see it's the interest that adds up. You know, that's the big factor in the cost. So if we have enough to buy a year, or excuse me, a month, buy it, you know, then buy the second month, third month. So it's a little more work on our part, but it will save you money in the end. Another important factor is if you are going to buy it, the sooner you buy it, the less expensive it's going to be. I did not say the cheaper it's going to be, the less expensive it's going to be the earlier you buy it. So if you are going to buy it, I would look into it pretty soon. As soon as you're vested or as soon as you're eligible, get a quote. You know, it's not going to hurt you. It's going to take a little bit of your time. That will give us an idea of how much we need to have in the account, especially when I'm talking to people that are starting this account in order to buy service credit. It's like, get that quote. Let's figure out, you know, that'll give us a timeline. Obviously, the quotes are only good, I think, 60 days. So that quote's not going to be good, but it gives us an idea of how much we need to have in the account to buy that first increment, whether it's a month, a year, whatever we're trying to buy. So that's kind of, I mean, the deferred comp part of this is easy. It's just, I like to make people aware of the tax-free, you know, the tax-free liability. You know, that's if you're going to buy time, this is a great way to do it. It's one of the few tax-free things out there. So if you're going to buy time, I would at least look at using my deferred comp to do it. So is there any questions? I mean, that's about all I need to cover. That is all for Christina right there. I don't see anything in the chat. Yeah, my part's quick. You know, so if anybody has questions on the plan in general, obviously I gave you the elevator speech on what deferred comp is. If you're not in the plan, I would encourage you to get in it. You know, no one's come back and said, you know, you helped us save too much for retirement. So whether you're buying service credit or just want another nest egg for your retirement to support that pension, I would get it going. Or now that you're thinking about it, increase it. You know, the more we have in there, the better off we're going to be. No two ways about it.
Excellent. I just want you to hang with me for 1 second. So
I can do that.
For those of you still with us, now that Paul has completed the smartest way to buy your time, this is a sample purchase agreement. The airtime and military ones look very similar, but I wanted to pull this up because sometimes there is confusion about filling this out. Since Paul is our resident expert PERA SmartSafe person, I want members to be aware that when PERA sends a purchase agreement, not only do we send this form, but we also send the service credit purchase form for PERA SmartSafe. Obviously, if you have Mission Square, ICMA, VALIC, I'm missing one, AIG, there are lots of deferred compensation providers. They're going to have a different form, but if you are joining us from an entity that has PERA SmartSafe and you have an account there, members need to be aware that they can purchase service credit, as I mentioned, with personal funds that they've already paid taxes on. And so that's the first option. I'm enclosing after-tax dollars. But a member can utilize their funds from deferred comp in conjunction with personal funds, which is that middle option, to pay for time. Or if you've just been saving forever, first, can I be your beneficiary? And second, you can use all of your deferred comp dollars in that third option to roll directly from PERA or from deferred comp to PERA. Now, if the money hits your hands, they're going to tax you. Somebody somewhere is going to tax you. It has to be a direct rollover to be a non-taxable event. But Mr. Paul, I was going to have you give any tips or tricks that you might have for your form, if I can find it. Oh, look.
Yeah, no worries. And thanks for bringing that part up. Yes, you can use a combination. I don't do that. I tend to like using as many tax deferred dollars as I can, because it's tax free. So that's why I like the strategy of let's buy what we have, keep putting more into your deferred comp, let it accumulate, and then we'll buy the next increment as soon as we have enough. But again, if you just want to get it done, and I'm actually working with a firefighter, somebody from AFR right now, and we're doing that, and she just wants to get it done. So if we're writing a check, we're waiting for that rollover to post, but she's going to do a combination. Now at the end of the day, it's your money. You know, I can tell you what I think. We're going to do it your way, whatever you want to do. So whatever works for you. This printed weird. Let me get used to it. But yeah, that's it. So our form is basically easy. So you get the PERA form. It's a lot of the same information. So, you know, who are you? Where do you work? We can go down a little bit. So what department you work for? Then all we really need, the big things that we are going to need, keep going there, is obviously the amount. So it's going to be off that calculation sheet. You're going to take that dollar amount. They're asking how long is that quote good? Because you need a valid quote. If that timeline expires, guess what? You have to go back to PERA, get another one. So that's gonna take a little while. The first one generally takes longer because they're basically rebuilding your account. So the second one tends to be quicker, but we still have to wait for them to come up with that quote. So that has to be a valid quote. If you call, and this happens more often than you would think, but if you call me and said, my quote's good till next Friday, can we do it? It's not going to happen. You know, we don't have a time machine. It does take a little while. It takes at least a week, and that's pushing it. I would say at least 2 weeks we want to do, because we do mail paper checks. So it does take a little while to do that. So the valid quote, once you have it, what you need to send me, or you can send it to the address from the form. The home office does not accept scans from participants. So you will have to fax it or mail it or overnight it. I'm not a huge fan of the overnight because it's basically a waste of money. You're not saving a whole lot of time. Everybody thinks it's like, oh, it'll process the next day. What takes a while is this whole industry is based on market close. So if we receive a check, it can't post till the next market close. So it's really going to take a couple days even to get it posted if everything's in perfect order. So the overnight basically just saves you 1 day in the mail, 1 or 2 days in the mail. So I'm not a huge fan. I mean, if you want to pay the money, that's fine. You can do that. But fax, email, if you scan and email it to me, they will accept scans from me. So I can scan that in for you. If we're going to go down that road, what I'm going to need is I'm going to need the PERA completed purchase agreement. I'm going to need the ARG purchase agreement. And then I'm also going to need the calculation page. So if you give me those three, I send those to PERA, I send those to Voya, then they send the check as well as the forms to PERA. I always tell people to give, Christina might like this, but I always say, why don't you give the forms to PERA as well, so they know they can expect that check coming. I say giving it to them twice is better than not getting enough. So I give a copy to PERA, give a copy to me. I'll send it to Voya. They'll send the check, and it about I'd say 2 weeks is a good 10 business days. About 2 weeks is a fair estimate. I do not get status updates. So even if you send it to me, if you want to check on where the status is, number one, you can log in your account, because you'll see a big chunk. Obviously, a big chunk of money is going to disappear from your account. They mail a paper check, so it will be in limbo for about a week or so while they send the check. And once PERA gets it, then they will post it to your account. So all I can see is what you have available to you on the internet. You know, that's not the only source I have. If you want to find out when the check was sent or very specific information, you can call the call center and they will track it. They'll have a paper trail of where it is in process. But that's, again, I'm glad for you reminded me of a couple of things I had to go over. But I think that's it. It's a pretty easy process if you decide you want to do it. And I'm more than happy to help you with that. So feel free to give me a call, email. If we need to meet in person, we can do that as well. But that's about it.
Fantastic. So just notes for the participants in today's webinar. Each of the purchase agreements have different pages. So most of them have a purchase agreement page that looks like this. Military and airtime have usually one extra page. It doesn't have dates. So the sample I have up on your screen right now is for withdrawn service credit. This specific purchase agreement is actually valid through July 31st for this member. And so they need to give Paul no less than 10 business days prior to that marker to get the funds rolled over to PERA. And so calling Paul on July 31st saying, can we make this happen, is not super likely. So
It's
just
not
make
gonna
sure,
happen. It's happened more
especially
than
when
once.
you
I
have,
tell you that. It's like, do tomorrow. I can't happen.
exactly. For the record, airtime and military purchase agreements are good for 60 days. Giving Voya, PERA Smart Save, the better of those 60 days is to your benefit, unless you're waiting for that last deposit to be the amount you need to roll over. That's acceptable, but getting too close makes for messes. Purchase agreements related to withdrawn, forfeited, refunded service credit are technically good for 120 days. But the reason you see additional dates on this form is because after the first date passes on the purchase agreement, additional interest is accruing for the remainder of that time. So if you want to stop the interest clock from ticking, paying as soon as possible, usually that first date is a great way to stop the interest clock from ticking. If you're rolling funds from deferred comp, you probably need to factor out 10 days from the date you're submitting the purchase for that final interest amount that is due, so that there is appropriate time for rolling over and posting at PERA. So just throwing that out there. I can't remember anything else that I'm supposed to touch base with you on related to purchases.
I see two questions that are kind of for me. I don't understand the one. It just says per year to Smart Save, so I don't know exactly what that question was. There's another one that asks, can you roll money from a non-state IRA or 401k? You should be able to. So in the early years, when they first did ECRA, this was a long time ago, there was some issues with that. So if they say you cannot do that, we can always roll the IRA or whatever you have into deferred comp and then transfer it over. That does take a while. Rollovers to Smart Save take quite a while to get those posted. So if you're in that situation, we need to get moving on that pretty quickly. But I think that is all the questions that were directed at me.
There are several more.
Where? I didn't see them.
That's okay, I might be behind. So someone asked if they are rolling funds to pay for time in 2023, will the 2023 maximum contribution amount be reset? And so I'm guessing they're asking.
Oh, if you take the money out, it doesn't count. So once you put it in there, yeah, that the maximum stays. So you can't put the 23 in, then roll it out and then reset. It doesn't reset the clock if that's what you're asking. So that is an annual limit. You get one time, so it does not reset. So an interesting question. I've never got that one before.
Me either.
Somebody's thinking there's light bulbs going on. It's like, wait a minute. There's always somebody that's pretty clever out there, but unfortunately, IRS has already said no. That's not going to work.
Excellent. Somebody asked about the minimum and maximum contributions for deferred comp. I know we didn't cover it here because we were only doing purchases.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I mentioned at the beginning, minimum's $10 per pay period. If you did both the Roth and the pre-tax, the minimum would be 2010 in each plan. Maximum again is 22,500. The once you are over age 50, that will jump up to 30,000. It's just kind of a bonus. There's no hoops you got to jump through. The catch-up provision, once you're within 3 years of eligible retirement, you can actually go back and find years that you did not put the max in there. So it does require work on our part. You know, you're gonna have a little bit of homework there, but it allows you to put in double the annual max. So basically 45,000 for 3 consecutive years. If you work for Bernalillo County, City of Albuquerque, or the Water Authority, there's ways to go above that too. So that's it. We'll take that offline if you're in that situation. But the leave balances that those 3 entities carry is so large, they give you a couple other options if you retire at the end of the year.
Very true. So somebody asked if they use deferred comp to buy airtime, is it taxed?
No, it is not. That's the advantage of using it. So if you did the Roth, that money's already been taxed. So that's why it's not an advantage. If you use the pre-tax, it's tax-free. So that is why you would consider using your deferred comp. Because if you paid out of your pocket, there's no tax liability, but last April you paid tax on that money. So you've already paid tax on that if you paid out of your pocket. Deferred comp, you never paid on the way in if we use the pre-tax. Since it's effectively a direct rollover, it's not a taxable event, so it's tax-free. So that is the advantage. That is the one advantage if you're going to buy it, why you would look at deferred comp.
Excellent. So this next question doesn't have anything to do with
why don't I
time.
see these?
I have no idea. They're in the Q&A. There's no chat.
Technology illiterate. Okay,
Yeah,
go ahead.
it's all Q&A. So somebody is moonlighting maybe. They work for a para-related entity and they want to know if they can contribute to the deferred comp plan with Para Smart Save if they are also contributing to a private 401k.
Yeah, 401, the plans are not related. So if you're benefits eligible, you should be allowed to contribute to your PERA Smart Save. Each entity may have different rules, so double check with them. But if you are benefits eligible, generally that is the criteria. And again, 401ks, 403bs, 457, they're all separate plans. So theoretically, you could max out your 401k and your Smart Save as well.
Excellent. Sorry, I am typing and thinking at the same time. Okay, I think that might be it, but if you have a moment to stick around and look at the rest of the questions in the Q&A, we would
type it
super
in
love
there. Yeah,
that.
that works.
That would be super helpful.
Oh, I just saw another one. Oh yeah, okay, I will do that. Perfect.
Thank you, Karen. Karen also mentioned that you can email your purchase agreement, both the PERA Smart Save purchase service credit form and your purchase agreement from PERA to the PERA-Smart Save email address. So we'll pull that from the website and include that in our response to Karen. Thank you for reminding us. And I think that we got the rest, but just take a look in the Q&A for me if you wouldn't mind. The questions keep pouring in, and I think we have like 6-ish minutes to look at some other things.
I can look through these. Yeah, there's a few I just saw now too.
Excellent. And here was the slide with the questions that people asked the most. So I apologize I didn't flip through that one fast enough. So it has the annual limits for 2023, since we're halfway through, those are still valid for the next 6 months. Also, Paul covers Central New Mexico. Peter Rapmond is a part of the team as well. He covers Northern New Mexico. And then we got exciting news that a representative has been hired for Southern New Mexico. As soon as we give him baptism by fire, we will get him on the road and update the slide with his contact information. And so we look forward to seeing everyone when we hit the road. This is PERA's website. You will find the PERA request form that I referenced a few slides ago on the Forms tab at nmpera.org. This is also the page where you will find the Rio login button for self-service, as well as the PERA Smart Save login. If you already have an account, want to check your balance after you run yourself a quote in self-service to see what you can afford to purchase. Contact information for PERA's Albuquerque and Santa Fe offices. We also give you the email address to email forms if you are interested in submitting your request form by email. I strongly recommend the self-service upload portal, but that is totally your call. The outreach team answers the PERA-member services and PERA-Albuquerque email addresses. For reference, every person on our team is going to be on the road tomorrow from the crack of dawn until dusk. And so if you email us tomorrow, our response times might be a little bit slower. My understanding is internet service in the area of the state we're visiting tomorrow is patchy.
Is not existent.
So if you don't hear back from us like you're used to, we apologize. We will do our best to respond in a timely manner after we regain cell service and internet. For reference, if you send something to our noreply.records email address, just as the name implies, no one's going to reply. So don't be mad at them. They are doing their job. They are accepting your form for processing. If you have a social media account on one or more platforms, we encourage you to give us a follow. This is one of the many ways we communicate with our members, and we love interacting with you. You would be totally shocked to know that we rarely get a rude comment from our social media channels. We love and appreciate you all and love your feedback. And so we look forward to interacting with you there. We promise to still communicate with you in other ways. And so that's the end of our slide deck. We're still answering questions in the Q&A, but if anybody has a question that they would like to ask verbally, you are welcome to raise your hand, and we can absolutely give you the ability to speak during today's presentation. We will wait to see if anyone's hands get raised. or you can continue to submit your questions to the Q&A, and we promise to get to those. But I think I promised you a field trip of sorts. Let's see if I can find my actual tab. Give me just a second. Is this my field trip tab? I love my field trip tab. So on an earlier slide, I said there were important things to consider when you are buying time. One of those items has to do with your relationship with retiree healthcare. When you go to nmrhca.org, which is our sister state agency, they actually are our neighbors in both the Albuquerque and Santa Fe offices, you will find a lovely item on their employees tab, which is their rate sheet if you purchase service credit. And so when you are purchasing service credit from PERA, you're going to pay us a set amount. If you want the subsidy that comes along with enrolling with retiree healthcare based on your years of service credit, a rule change from 2009 indicates that you do not get service credit for that purchase on the rate sheet based on years of service at retiree healthcare unless you pay an additional fee to retiree healthcare to cover those missing contributions for that year or multiple years. And so if we were going to use me as an example, and I am just presuming you all can see my screen, if I decided to buy a year worth of service credit and I completed less than 25 years of service credit because I'm not a public safety officer, I would find my respective age down the left side of the column. And if I was retiring between July 1 and June 30 of 2024, I would find the associated cost. If I wanted that year to count toward retiree healthcare's premiums, I would have to pay retiree healthcare that additional amount on top of what I already paid PERA for that service credit purchase. What I'm talking about in terms of subsidies on their retirees tab, you're actually going to find their rate sheets at the top of the page. And so we're going to look at the one that actually has the years of service credit on it. If I was at 24 years, I had another opportunity, I had it up to here, I wanted to buy time. Because I bought a year of airtime that doesn't count toward retiree healthcare, I would be paying premiums in the 24-year column based on the plan that I select for retiree healthcare. If I wanted to pay the 25-year premiums, I would have to pay the additional amount indicated on this table to retiree healthcare. And they actually give you like basically 2 years of costs. If you're not retiring between now and next June, they actually give you a schedule for the following fiscal year. So you could figure out if that investment, paying retiree healthcare, that extra amount would be enough to offset the cost that you would be paying for premium. So fair warning, PERA and retiree healthcare are only associated because we both work with retirees. PERA has nothing to do with post-retirement insurance. These are completely separate transactions. So if you're interested in buying time with PERA and buying time with retiree healthcare, you need to reach out to them directly to talk to them about that process. Unfortunately, we can't really delve into that. Let's see, other fun things. Miss Natalie, are there any questions you want me to help with live?
So there was one right above the one that I'm responding to right now, where can someone find the breakdown of years of service and the percentage of pension for 15, 20, 25 years utilizing the rule of 85?
Fantastic question. So since that doesn't have to do with purchasing time, Kevin, sir, I promise to answer that question for you. I would like to focus on the last of the buying time questions before we get to that. For Daniel Ramirez's question, what is the interest on airtime again? There is no interest on airtime. It is legitimately 4 factors. It is your age, service credit, plan, and final average salary. Let me see if Zoom will let me reshare the presentation. maybe, just maybe. I apologize in advance if I'm making anyone dizzy. So, airtime cost calculation, age, service, plan, final average salary. And that breakdown actually gives you the per month cost at the bottom of the page. This page also tells you do not submit any money to PERA. You need a formal cost purchase agreement, and the only way to get that is by submitting a PERA request form. Standard response time is 30 to 45 days, as it says on the form. Did I skip that page? Nope, sorry. Okay, so somebody put in the Q&A something super important. If you submitted a PERA request form for a cost calculation, an estimate of benefits, a service credit verification, and you have not received a response, please, whatever you do, do not submit a new PERA request form. We actually have something called a work queue that all of our retirements and request staff feed off of. And so when you submit a request, let's say it was in April or May, that gets assigned to an employee for processing. If now in June you didn't get a response, you submit a new request, your previous request gets canceled, and then you go back into the queue at the bottom. So please do not submit duplicate requests. Don't mail it and fax it and email it, because you're canceling out all those previous iterations. Submit it once and then contact PERA to see if we've actually received it. We'd be happy to provide that confirmation to you. Or if you want that confirmation yourself, upload it to your self-service account. So yes, absolutely, please do that. Let's see. Is airtime still honored if we change to a different state retirement system? So airtime, military, withdrawn service credits, they all have to be paid in full before you can retire. If I bought airtime and then switched back to the Educational Retirement Board, all of my PERA service credits will be factored into the PERA portion of the calculation that PERA will pay my benefits based on. My service credit with the Educational Retirement Board is standalone and will be calculated based on their rules and regs and pension factor, which are different than ours. And so the service credit isn't interchangeable, but for example, if I had 5 years with Educational Retirement Board and 20 years with PERA, my 25 years of combined service credit would allow me to retire based on my Tier 1 retirement eligibility status. So hopefully that'll work for you. To the individual who said they emailed and didn't receive a response, these are the general email boxes. No less than 6 staff members see the emails that come into PERA Member Services and PERA Albuquerque. If you're emailing no reply, no one's going to call you back. If you want to speak to a live human being, our call center is staffed Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. The only time we're closed is when it's a state holiday or a weather-related delay or closure. And so 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, you can call any of the numbers there on the screen. Staff is absolutely available to help you. Fun fact, sometimes Outlook, which is my frenemy, funnels our emails into our junk folder, and we would like to inform them that none of your emails are junk, but they're not listening to us. So if you've sent an email, haven't received a response, and you're absolutely certain you typed the email address correctly, please give us a call at the toll-free number so you can get your questions addressed. Let's see, we did that. How do you start PERA Smart Save? Did Paul, Mr. Paul, you're still in there. We will let Paul answer that, but for the record, Karen's in here too. I should have promoted her. That was bad. Miss Karen, are you still with us?
Yeah, so you can enroll online. It depends on where you are. So if you're with the state, you can enroll online. Most entities you can enroll online. If you are with City of Albuquerque, Bernalillo County, or the Water Authority, you must fill out a paper form. If you go online there, it's not going to start. They require that actual paper form to get you going. If you're not one of those 3 entities, you can enroll online. I'm more than happy to help you. I'm more than happy to help you with that. So if you have any questions, give me a call. I can walk you through it. I can send you the paper form, whatever you want to do. But that's it. It's easiest, probably easiest online. But some people still prefer the paper form. So I'm more than happy to help you either way.
Fantastic. Thank you. All right, let's see. I am just scrolling the remaining questions. Ooh, good question. So, is there any advice to determine how purchasing withdrawn service credits from many years ago will be worth the price? So, presuming you can still see my slide deck, I am just backing up to the withdrawn purchase. So, in this instance, it is going to take this member a very long time to recoup the $105,000+ PERA is asking them to pay to reinstate that service credit. As a general rule, anything that takes longer than 7 years to recoup is, by most standards, not considered a wise investment. However, the other sample that I gave to you on this lovely slide, the member who's eligible to purchase a year and 8 months, that purchase would cost the member roughly $8,500. It would help her reach vesting status, and she could retire literally in 60 days after she makes her payment to PERA. We post the service credit. And so if she would not purchase that time, she would have to work another 21 months to reach retirement eligibility. And so in my discussion with her recently, I touted the benefits of being able to draw that pension so much sooner. And so immediately after roughly 10 months, she would be in the positive for that investment. And so I would look at how does that purchase increase your retirement eligibility? How much does that purchase increase your monthly pension benefits? If you divide your estimated monthly pension benefit into the cost, the total cost that you see on this lovely screen, that'll give you the rough number of months that you would need to draw that benefit to, recoup that investment. If it's more than 7 years and your family has great longevity, everybody's in their 90s, maybe it's a worthwhile investment for you. But my math tells me this would not have been beneficial for the member. Technically, they were eligible based on age and service credit without that purchase. And so I told them if they won the lottery, they had all the money in deferred comp, that would certainly be a consideration. And the reason I say that is because PERA is going to pay you once a month for the remainder of your lifetime. And so you're investing in your future. Having an increased pension benefit for the duration of your lifetime is certainly something to consider investing in. All right. Does the time you buy go into effect once your monies are received? Yes. So once PERA receives your personal check, your money order, your direct rollover from another retirement account, our contribution accounting staff actually posts your service credit to your account and send you a confirmation letter. Generally, from the day we receive those dollars, I would say within 5 to 10 business days is when that service credit gets posted to your account. Somebody, and I know this is not purchase related, somebody's telling us they can't access our Rio self-service account. So fun fact, I actually learned that some state agencies block PERA, our self-service account, sometimes our Zoom meetings, and so you might want to try from a personal device. Ooh, good question. So for withdrawn service credit, the cost calculation is based on the contributions and interest, and it's only the employee contributions and interest that were earned and refunded to you at the time of distribution, and then we're assessing interest from the date of refund to the date the time is reinstated. So it has nothing to do with your current wages. Refunded service credit has to do with the contributions you paid during the time you were previously employed and took a refund of your contributions. What gets you, based on today's date, is the compounding interest. That compounding interest grows at, in my professional opinion, astronomical levels. And so the sooner you can stop that interest clock from ticking, the better off you will be. let's see. If you are retired military, will buying military time affect your military retirement pay? That's a good question. I answered this earlier in relation to Social Security. Standalone benefits. PERA is paying you the benefit that you've earned. Social Security, if you're eligible, will pay you the benefit you've earned there. PERA doesn't care what you draw from Social Security. Social Security may care about what you're drawing from us. If the military cares what you're drawing from us, that might be a factor. So that is certainly a question you want to ask of your military benefits provider. The question, and I'm not sure what type of service credit this is in reference to, they are asking if they can buy 1 year at a time. So if we are talking about withdrawn service credit, your only option is to buy 1 year minimum or multiple years, or all of it in one lump sum. And so if you can only afford 1 year in this scenario, you can buy that 1 year, stop the interest clock from ticking. If we're talking about military or airtime service credit, you can buy as little as 1 or more months of service credit. So I'm not sure what type that service credit question refers to, but there is your answer. Is airtime payment lump sum? Can it be paid in increments over a year? So airtime, if you are interested in purchasing airtime or military service credit, each has a quote for a cost per month, or if you have a purchase agreement, it shows you the total for 1 month's purchase. You have to give PERA enough money to cover the cost of 1 month before we will post that service credit to your account. And so that's just something for your reference. If you don't have enough money saved to cover the cost of that month, that's where deferred comp can be your friend, because you can put that money aside to deferred comp on a biweekly basis until you have enough funds saved to buy that time. All right. Excellent. So I am going to have to look at that longer. Fantastic. All right, so this is related to airtime. Can airtime be purchased over several payments? The purchase agreement for airtime and military service credit are valid for 60 days. If you can purchase 1 or more months on your purchase agreement that you have in your hot little hand that's valid for 60 days, buy all that you can. Once that contract expires and becomes null and void, it's not void if you actually paid on it, you can send in an updated request for a new purchase agreement when you have additional funds saved. And so in terms of can you purchase it over several payments, you could absolutely purchase it over several purchase agreements. I know a member who had enough time to buy like 1 month of military, and then they saved for paychecks, and then in that same 60-day contract, they bought a 2nd month of military. So you can buy as much time as you can in that 60-day window. Once you have more funds saved, you can do another purchase agreement, and as long as you're not exceeding plan maximum, you can continue to do that as you save funds. So it's absolutely a possibility, but we do not let you have that service credit if you do not have enough funds to cover a minimum of 1 month. Where airtime and military are concerned, you have to have all of the funds to cover a minimum of 1 year unless you withdrew less than 1 year of withdrawn service credit. Let's see. That is not a purchase. Can we buy more than 1 year, or is it still only 1 year? So depends on the type of service credit. Withdrawn is 1 year at a time as you can afford it, up to all of your withdrawn service credit. Military service credit is 1 month at a time or more months, up to 60 months maximum, provided you serve 60 months. Airtime is capped at 12 months maximum, but you can purchase that 1 or more months at a time as you can afford it. And all purchases have to be paid in full before retirement. Let's see, airtime at my current rate of pay or when I worked as a seasonal employee? Good question. So airtime is based on final average salary. Generally, when individuals are seasonal, temporary, part-time, less than 20 hours, student employees, they are not contributing members of PERA, so that salary is not even a factor. At the time of your purchase, PERA is going to assess your final average salary, which is either your highest 36 consecutive months of salary or your highest 60 consecutive months of salary, depending on your tier. Let's see, that's not a purchase question. We will get back to the rest of those. There, we got that one. Ooh, good question. What other types of service credit can I purchase? Can I purchase service credit from UNM Work Study? That is a really great question for the Educational Retirement Board. So I'm going to reply to this in the Q&A. You need to reach out to the Educational Retirement Board to ask if you're eligible to purchase that time. I know enough to be dangerous in their plan, but you need a definitive answer that is visible in their statutes and their rules to determine if you can buy that time. Now, that being said, the other question in the queue has to do with reciprocity. That means you've worked under more than one state retirement system. The service credit can be combined toward retirement eligibility. The example I gave was having 5 years of Educational Retirement Board time, 20 years of PERA service credits. That 25 years of combined service can allow me to retire as a Tier 1 member. However, buying time with the Educational Retirement Board is different. Their cost calculations are different in a lot of ways, but when you buy their time, you're going to fall under one of 4 tiers. If you're not already established as Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, when you buy time with the Educational Retirement Board, you are likely going to fall under Tier 4. Before you invest those dollars, ask them how Tier 4 benefits are calculated. For those members who are on our end, and I'm going to get to that, Tier 2, how do you calculate benefits at the different years of service credit? Their Tier 4 has a graduated pension factor annual multiplier, and the very lowest levels of service credit earn less than 2% per year. So you certainly want to reach out to the Educational Retirement Board. I will drop their contact information as a response to your question. The questions that don't have to do with buying time, we're going to handle in the chat. Somebody's asking for a copy of their withdrawal or their refund from a previous period of employment. Please contact PERA by email, by phone, and we will absolutely get that information sent out to you. Let's see, I did that one live. I need to look at this one closer. I think just for time being, I'm going to do the end of the presentation and stop the recording, and then we'll stay here as long as you need us. But we would like to thank you all for joining us today. This has certainly been one of the most engaging groups we've had in a long while. We hope you learned something new, something to help you make an informed retirement decision related to buying time. And so we thank you all for joining us. This video will be live on our video library as soon as we can get it downloaded. So thank you all so much. Let us know if you have any questions. We're happy to help. Take care.